Welcome, Capricorn, to your in-depth monthly forecast for March 2026 for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. I'm going to share with you, first of all, the big themes of the month ahead. Then on screen, the event chart on the first. That gives us an understanding of the backdrop energy, which will be threaded throughout the month. I'll then go through all the influences in detail, frame by frame, to give you a clear picture of what you can expect in terms of romance, money, energy, and work. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please help it to continue to thrive and do so now. Your ruler, Saturn, now back in Aries, is going to be met along with Neptune, first by Venus around about the 8th or 9th of April exactly. And then in the last 10 days of the month, when we have the vernal equinox on the 20th, the sun returns to Aries. We start the whole astrological year afresh. Well, the sun is going to meet up with your ruler and Neptune in that last 10-day period. But it's very historical. It's the first time the sun has met with Saturn in Aries for 29 and a half years, and the first time for 150 years with Neptune. What can you expect? Because at the start of this month, Capricorn, there's a lot of energy around the quick communicational part of your scope, despite the planet which governs that, Mercury, being in a retrograde through to the 20th. Well, it's because you have a stellium of energy in Pisces. So on the screen, you can see it there, the North Node in a conjunction with the Sun, and Mercury, the aforementioned Mercury, with the lovely svelte energies of Venus. And that collective there is going to see a speeding up, particularly on the second when Mars moves out of Aries and into Pisces. But just before Mars leaves, right at the start of the month, Mars is in a crunching right angle to Uranus. If you go back to the summer of 2018, can you recall what was unfolding for you at that particular time? If you did encounter some disruption or you did something quite speculative with your resources, it wouldn't be a surprise. Because at that time, Uranus was right at the start of Taurus, its first visit for around 4.5 months. And although Mars was just in the sign of Capricorn at 29 degrees on the analytic degree, it did move into Aquarius and then went into its every 2 year retrograde. And the two were agitating each other right through that period of time. So you might find as you're coming into this month that there is an echo of what happened then in your situation. But also, the mighty but tiny Pluto is in a direct opposition with the moon in the eighth house. If there's something you're attached to, or something someone close to you is attached to, it could show up with that energy. The moon Pluto opposition is very intense. It can see situations where people will leverage, uh, make an additional point in order to make a double point, if you get my drift. And because the moon in Leo can be quite prideful, and the eighth house can be about intimacy, especially sexual relationship, but also things like shared finances. Pluto in the second house, your values, but everyday money, those could be areas of discussion. But that clash between Mars and Uranus could see you attracted to someone who's very sparky, very provocative, and maybe a bit edgy, and you may find them very hard to resist. But equally, there may be an idea that you've got that seems very compelling, and there could be a strong impulse, particularly with Pluto and the Moon in that second eighth house energy, to try to improve your lot by embracing the potential to do something a bit more daring with resources. Very much Taurus energy. Uranus can be about fast movements, but also about doing things in a fresh or different way. Now, if you are a very archetypal Capricorn who does like to be more safety first, that's an influence just to be conscious of. If you are someone who's perhaps got Sagittarius energy in your natal chart or some Aquarius energy, you may not reflect that natural archetype of caution and be more open to doing something more quickly and entrepreneurially. but the moon moves on the second into that third house. And I feel actually, although the moon in Pisces is very subterranean. People who are divers, believe it or not, uh, swimming coaches or life coaches can often have Mars in Pisces, the water use of physicality. I feel for you over the following 6 weeks, it does push you in a way to get more physically active. And swimming would be a great way to get a combination of the two energies. But Mercury is, of course, detrimented in the sign of Pisces, but it is in the third house. So it has an echo of that quick Gemini energy as long as you can tune in to the more emotional dimension of Pisces. Now, Mercury is in a lovely conjunction with Venus at the start of this month, so your mind can be quite nimble. But if you are trying to express ideas, you can do so graciously and perhaps very imaginatively. But there is a square between Mars and Uranus, which is complemented by a sextile between Venus and Uranus. Isn't that intriguing? So there may be an idea that actually really does capture your imagination. Maybe it's a conversation you're going to have, possibly online. Uranus very much to do with technology, the third house, quick chat. And it may be someone that you find very compelling, but that sees us circling back to that Mars in a square with Uranus. If there is someone or something that attracts you, desire, the second house, Mars, obviously about instant gratification, could see you make a quick decision. I feel really these energies are asking you to talk things through and really get to know a person. But you do have an opportunity to do that by the 5th. As the sun moves forwards, it's going to link beautifully with Jupiter in your sector of relating. Now, Jupiter is retrograde through to the 11th, but that's one of astrology's most fortunate influences. Jupiter being the traditional ruler of Pisces, that creates a mutual receptivity. So if you're discussing things, the third house, and connecting the seventh house, but maintaining that emotional connection in a very feeling and sensory way, you'll be surfing that terrifically well. But what about that total lunar eclipse of the third? It's the only total lunar eclipse of the year. It occurs in your sister Earth sign of Virgo, but for you, it's the ninth house. Now, the sign of Virgo is very much about closing in our attention and focusing on the detail. The ninth house is widen the lens, so there is a little bit of a contraindication. But it's possible that something could be discussed around the lunar eclipse or possibly over the next 6 months, which turns out to be a very important conversation indeed. It might be about a contractual matter. You might be thinking or talking about a new mode of transport. It may be about a vacation. You could even be considering joining something where you can share your ideas with other like minded people. But it's important with ninth house energy to understand what our higher motivation is. The third house energy, in a way, can be a bit more impulsive. Because Mercury can be affected by the water of Pisces, which erodes its natural appreciation of precision, it's just really important right through to the 20th when Mercury ends its retrograde and through to the 9th of April when it then comes out of its post retrograde shadow to make sure you do think carefully, particularly if you're committing anything to paper, a formal letter or email. Don't rush. So there is the potential to get caught up in a sense of excitement right at the start of this month, to be honest. But then on the 6th, Venus moves into your fourth house. Now, Venus technically is detrimented in Aries. I like Venus in Aries. It's one of those essential dignities that whenever I do readings for clients, particularly females, because astrology is predicated very much on male and female, and I feel that we don't necessarily, we all have some of those masculine and feminine energies within us. And I feel that Venus in Aries can give people a desire to get things done. So if you wanted to make some changes to your home, for example, whether it's decoratively, whether it's physically moving altogether, whether you want to invite people around and play host, Venus in the fourth house can be very good. But it is going to meet that celestial roadblock of Saturn and Neptune by about the 8th or 9th. There are some tensions or disagreements in the family situation. They could show up then. However, with that energy between Jupiter and the Sun, that does provide an off ramp. Again, if we tune into how we feel and don't just gauge things in a more practical way, which can be your default, allow yourself to feel things. Because essentially, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, that's going to be the lesson. It's all about feeling. And for 3 months and a week last year, Saturn, and 6 months Neptune, that was an early exposure to how this could be. I think with that experience in hand, if there were some cooling offs of certain relationships, or your priorities changed about where you lived or the connections you wanted, that would probably have been very helpful to work with Saturn and Neptune now. But the middle of this month, the combination of Mercury and Mars suggests that if you do want to make a quick decision, despite Mercury being detrimented and in retrograde, Mars brings a more impatient vibe to bear. So I wouldn't rush a conversation at the heart of this month. But then on the 19th, we have a sparkling new moon in Pisces. Why water energy works for you, Capricorn, is because Earth carries water. If you think the bottom of a riverbed or the bottom of a canal basin, that's Earth. So you conduct water very well. And it's a new moon, which again is influenced by Uranus. So Uranus clashes with Mars at the start of this month, brings sparkle to Venus, and then brings epithescence to the new moon. And it's your words, because over the last couple of years, your ruler Saturn may have made communication or interaction not laboured as such. There may have been times when people seem to be a bit harsh on you about the way you said things, or it could be about just your point of view, your belief systems in your local community. Things may have seemed tense, or perhaps there was a change of environment, literally things like more crime, or maybe there was a property matter with a neighbor that affected you. Maybe things were a bit cooler with a sibling, the third house. That's where Saturn brought restriction. This new moon can bring evolution and potential. So if you did find the last couple of years quite trying at times, I think if you worked at it and really embraced the upside of Saturn, which is being very dedicated, it's understanding it's a karmic energy, it is about timing, and it's also about having the wisdom, Saturn, to own what may need to change. And therefore, you could get your reward on that particular new moon, which is why it makes it really unique with the Sun returning to Aries on the 20th, Mercury going direct, and then Saturn welcoming and Neptune welcoming the Sun in the last phase of this month. That again, the emotional dimension comes sharply into focus that Venus may have exposed around the 8th or the 9th. But if you wanted to put a deposit on a property, rent a flat, uh, uh, make a firm commitment in an emotional relationship, it's because Saturn is an anchor. We mustn't see Saturn and Jupiter, for example, in binary terms. Saturn's all bad, Jupiter's all amazing. Well, that didn't work out very well with Jupiter, did it, when it moved into Cancer, where it's supposed to be exalted? Why? Because your ruler decided early in Aries it was going to forge an exact square on the 15th of June. So a lot of YouTube astrologers saying how amazing Jupiter was going to be in Cancer. And of course, it didn't really start to get going until it started to forge a sextile with Saturn towards the end of last year. So the point here is that we can't look at things in binary ways. Saturn can create restraint, slow things down, but it also asks us to prioritize. So, as much as there's that sparkling, interactive, communicational energy at the start and the first 2/3 of this month, really what's important is that you're conversing and discussing with true purpose and meaning. And that is Saturn. It's asking you to moderate your own way of interaction in a manner which leaves you feeling secure and serene. That is the outcome. And then you get a true celestial bonus ball as this month comes to a close, Capricorn, with Venus making its third zodiac sign visit, I beg your pardon, moving into Taurus on the 30th, and that can bring some kind of playfulness to the end of the month, and certainly brings a slice of great hope to what April will bring for you, which I will publish a little bit earlier next month for you. If you'd like to understand how Saturn will impact you in a deeper way over the next 2 years, please click on the link of the video on the screen. Please join me at my website by clicking the other link. We've made lots of changes. It's really evolving. I'd love to have your company. I do think a lot of astrology websites, a lot of more horoscope websites are very generic, and ours really is produced very much with soul intent. Come and say hello. Would you like to review one-to-one, please check out my testimonials below. You can also order your personal forecast either in natal or draconic format. If you order the natal package, there's 50% off. Please apply Astro 26 at the checkout. If you want draconic, your soul karmic package, there's 50% off. Please apply Draco 26 at the checkout. Both provide searing insights, great value, very accurate, and totally unique to you.